Pacific War, major theater of World War II that covered a large portion of the Pacific Ocean, East Asia, and Southeast Asia, with significant engagements occurring as far south as northern Australia and as far north as the Aleutian Islands. It consists of a few quite important events, including the Pearl Harbor attack happening on December 7, 1941, where Japan staged a surprise attack on Pearl Harbor, severely damaging the U.S. Pacific Fleet. Japan launched a relentless attack, sweeping through the U.S. territories of Guam Island and the Philippines, as well as British-controlled Hong Kong, Malaya, and Burma. However, since U.S. wasn't prepared for going on a war, with much of the U.S. fleet destroyed, they decided to ally with Great Britain and defeat Germany first. Next, we have Battle of Wake Island happening on December 8 to 23, 1941. During the battle, a small force of U.S. Marines and civilian defenders fought elements of the Imperial Japanese Navy, which ultimately seized the island but at great cost.
In the following year, we have Battle of the Coral Sea, which happening during May 4th to 8th, 1942. It is a naval and air engagement in which a U.S. fleet turned back a Japanese invasion force that had been headed for strategic Port Moresby in New Guinea. The next and a significant battle, the Battle of Midway, happening during June 3rd to 6th, 1942. The battle is fought almost entirely with aircraft. United States destroyed Japan's first-line carrier strengths and most of its best-trained naval pilots. The battle ended the threat of further Japanese invasion in the Pacific. Come next, Battle of Guadalcanal happening from August 1942 to February 1943, the first major offensive and a decisive victory for the Allies in the Pacific theater. Finally, we have Battle of the Philippine Sea, June 19 to 20, 1944, a naval battle between the Japanese Combined Fleet and the U.S. Fifth Fleet, as well as Battle of Leyte Gulf, October 23 to 26, 1944, an air and sea battle that crippled the Japanese Combined Fleet, permitted U.S. invasion of the Philippines, and reinforced the Allies' control of the Pacific. And lastly, the Battle of Okinawa, April 1st to June 22nd, 1945, which was fought between U.S. and Japanese forces on Okinawa.
We would say among all, the two most significant battles to World War II would be the attack of Pearl Harbor and the atomic bombing of Japan. First off, the Pearl Harbor had caused thousands of deaths. The Japanese sought to complete over the initiative of Pacific. They were aiming for the defeat of U.S. carrier fleet since U.S. was considered as one of the world's major powers than trying to stop Japan's global expansion. Their surprise attack may increase their odds of winning. Japanese understood that by destroying the base of Pearl Harbor would mean they got control over the Pacific as they got control over China's import market, where the U.S.'s resources were. It is said that attacks could have been prevented if the Americans was prepared of the war by listening to the negative information that was coming before the raid started. Washington saw that if Japanese was going to attack them, it would be within the Philippines and nowhere near U.S. They had 5 listening stations all over the world, tracking the location of their enemies. The report was forwarded to Admiral Stark every morning. Also, they had 2 radars, tracking incoming Japanese aircraft. If the Americans had noticed those alerts earlier, they would have gotten prepared for the war and saved many lives. Technically, it's Americans' fault to causing the deaths of their own nation.
On the other hand, it's also debatable on the necessity for U.S. dropping the atomic bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The bomb raised and burns around 70% of all buildings and caused an estimated of 140,000 deaths by the end of 1945. Along with increased rates of cancer and chronic disease among the survivors for years. People have been arguing if the U.S. was justified to launch the bomb. As early as 1944, the Allied powers have already defeated Germany in Europe. Japan, however, refused to surrender, despite that they had little chance of winning. In fact, between mid-April 1945 and mid-July, Japanese forces inflicted Allied casualties totaling nearly half those suffered in 3 full years of war in the Pacific, proving that Japan had become even more deadly when faced with defeat. In late July, Japan's militarist government rejected the Allied demand for surrender put forth in the Potsdam Declaration, which threatened the Japanese with prompt and utter destruction if they refused. Technically, Japan had no power to threaten any of the Allied powers. It had no allies, its navy was almost destroyed, its islands were under a naval blockade, and its cities were undergoing a concentrated air attack. The atomic bomb is just extra. Even Secretary of War Henry Louis Stimson was not sure the bombs were needed to reduce the need of an invasion. US might have just used an alternative way to force the Japanese to surrender, like a smaller range of attack, instead of dropping the bomb, killing tons of innocent people. This would not do any good but contribute to the hatred between countries. It might also be a factor leading to World War III, because who knows? Countries act like human beings. They are always looking for chances to revenge. War is always people's greatest enemy, as we were warned humanity about the perils of dividing people. Every kingdom divided against itself will be ruined, and every city or household divided against itself will not stand. Mankind divided into infinite ways, like different nations, religions, languages, cultures, and they just keep fighting each other for thousands of decades. Why can't people just unite from all nations and fight against those potential disasters such as global warming, running out of natural resources, and make our planet a better place to live?